What makes an android matter? Not as a machine, not as a gimmick, not as the robot character standing in the corner of a sci-fi show. What makes an android matter is when the story starts asking human questions because of him. And that is exactly what Data did. He arrived in Star Trek: The Next Generation as an artificial life form aboard the Enterprise D. But he did not stay a curiosity. He became one of the franchise's clearest answers to a question that still matters today. What does it actually mean to be a person? Here are the top 10 reasons Data changed Star Trek forever. Number 10. He made curiosity feel human. Data first appears in The Next Generation as the Enterprise D's Chief Operations Officer. He is calm, precise, brilliant, and deeply, almost painfully curious. On the surface, he seems like the ultimate Starfleet officer. He never tires, he never panics, he can analyze a situation in seconds. But Data is not written as perfect, he is written as unfinished. And that difference is everything. Because Data is not just there to solve problems. He is there to show us what it looks like when intelligence, dignity, and wonder exist inside a being who is still trying to define himself. Every time Data looks at people, he reveals something about them. Every time he asks a question, the show answers one we did not know we were asking. Number 9. He turned philosophy into character drama. The genius of Data is that he never feels like a lecture. He makes philosophy personal. He does not just ask what a person is. He lives the question. He paints. He plays poker, he studies music, he performs Shakespeare, he tries jokes, timing, expression, social rituals that come naturally to everyone else, and none of it is treated like a throwaway gag. Every attempt to become more human is also an attempt to become more fully himself. He is not trying to become human because humans are superior. He is trying to understand the shape of his own existence. That is why the character lasts. Because his longing is never shallow. It is not just robot wants feelings, it is deeper than that. Data is trying to answer a question that everyone, in one form or another, eventually faces. Who am I? And who do I choose to become? Number 8. The measure of a man changed everything. If you want to understand Data, you have to talk about the measure of a man. Because that episode stops being about an android and becomes about personhood itself. In that story, Data is put on trial, not for a crime, for ownership. The question is brutal in its simplicity. Is Data a person, or is he property? That sounds like a sci-fi premise, until you realize how real the stakes are. Picard argues that Data cannot be reduced to his construction. He is not a tool. He is not equipment. He is a being with thought, memory, agency, and identity. And the episode forces the audience to sit with the answer. Data is not valuable because he is useful. He is valuable because he is someone. And that distinction changes everything. It changes how we see his earlier episodes. It changes how we understand his search for humanity. And it changes the entire moral framework of Star Trek. Because once Data is recognized as a person, the question is no longer whether he is human enough. The question becomes whether humanity is large enough to include him. Number 7. Lore showed the path Data could have taken. Data's story becomes richer when you look at the people who made him, especially Dr. Noonien Song. There is something quietly painful in the fact that Data was created by a man who gave him life and then left him with unfinished questions. That makes Data's search for identity feel even more personal. He is a creation searching for a creator, a son searching for a father, a mind trying to understand the hand that built it. And then there is Lore, Data's brother, his darker reflection. If Data represents curiosity, restraint, and idealism, Lore represents resentment, instability, and rage. They are not just opposites. They are two possible responses to being made and left to figure out the world. That makes Lore important because he shows what Data could have become if bitterness had won. Number 6. Law showed that Data could love. Then there is Law, a child, a creation of Data's own. And that changes the emotional temperature of the entire story. Because suddenly, Data is not only asking what it means to be made, he is asking what it means to care for someone you helped bring into existence. Law's story is heartbreaking because it reveals how much Data has grown. He is no longer only searching for identity. He is already capable of love. And that is where Data becomes something bigger than an android arc. Because once he can love, grieve, and protect, the story stops being about whether he is human enough. It becomes about whether we were ever paying close enough attention. Number 5. He separated morality from emotion. One of the most powerful things about Data is that he does not feel emotions the same way humans do. And yet he often makes the kind of choices emotions are supposed to inspire. He is loyal. He is careful. He is compassionate. He tries to do what is right, even when it would be easier to do nothing. That matters because Star Trek uses Data to separate feeling from morality. He proves that goodness is not only instinct, it is discipline, it is choice. It is the decision to act with care even when the machinery of emotion is not pushing you there. That is why Data works so well as a character. He is not a cold machine trying to imitate warmth. He is a being trying to understand the moral weight of consciousness, and sometimes he understands it better than the people around him. Number 4. He made everyone else more human. Data is often remembered as the character who wants to become human, but he also does something more subtle. He reveals what humans take for granted. Every time he asks a sincere question, the crew is forced to examine their own habits. Why do people laugh at one thing and not another? Why do they lie? Why do they protect each other? Why do they mourn? Why do they need companionship? Data becomes a mirror, not because he is emotionally empty, but because his perspective strips away the automatic assumptions people live inside. A question from Data can expose a truth nobody else noticed, and that is why he is so useful to the show. He is not only a character, he is a dramatic instrument. He lets Star Trek talk about identity, ethics, grief, prejudice, family, and consciousness without ever sounding like a lecture, because the questions come from someone who genuinely wants the answers. Number 3. He showed that personhood is bigger than biology. Data spent his life trying to become human. But the deeper truth is this: he did not need to become human to matter. He already did. The Measure of a Man makes that clear. Lore shows us what pain can do. Law shows us what love can create. And Data himself shows us that personhood is not defined by flesh, or origin, or whether emotions come naturally. It is defined by consciousness, by choice, by care, by the willingness to keep becoming. Number 2. He gave Star Trek its clearest question about identity. Data is not just a great character. He is a question Star Trek keeps returning to. What is a person? What is a mind? What is the difference between being built and being alive? Those questions are why the character endures. Not because he was the closest thing to a human, but because he made the franchise brave enough to say that humanity is not a shape. It is a practice, a way of choosing, a way of caring, a way of becoming. And number 1, he taught Star Trek what being human actually meant. When people remember Data, they do not remember him because he was the closest to a human. They remember him because he taught Star Trek something bigger, that the line between machine and person is not drawn as we thought it was, and that sometimes the most human thing in the room is the being still trying to understand what it means to be alive. Data spent his life reaching for humanity. In the end, he taught humanity what being human actually meant. If you want more Star Trek character breakdowns like this, subscribe to Mando Flux. Drop a comment below. Tell me who you want to see next. I'll see you in the next one.